Ladies and gentlemen, before I start, I would quite like to use you all to try a little something. So I need both your hands free for this. So if you're holding your mobile phone or a pen, taking notes or a drink or something, just put it down. I need both your hands to be free. Now everybody take part, even if you're at the back, I can still see you. So hold your hands out in front of you like this. I appreciate you might be holding them outside the ears of the person sitting in front of you. This might get a little tricky. Twist your wrists so your palms are facing outwards. Good. Now put your right hand over your left. This is where we get to find out who knows their right from their left. Always a couple of people readjusting. Clasp your fingers together and point your thumbs to the floor. Just like this lady's doing right here. Excellent work. Now, there's about 1,000 of you in here, so this should be interesting. If you can't do what I'm about to do, you all owe me €1. Now, euro being roughly equal to £1 with the dreadful state of Brexit, I should do well in this back in the UK. So, 3, 2, 1, twist your wrists so your thumbs are pointing to the ceiling. No? No one? Who says crime doesn't pay, eh? It's all right, you can put your hands down. Don't break anything, it's fine. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Alexis Conran, and as Stefan mentioned earlier, all of today we have been looking at the superpowers. And when I say superpowers, we all think of Superman, we think of the good guys. I'm going to talk to you about the bad guys. And I think there's a lot we can learn by studying their superpowers, because their superpowers are pretty damn cool. I'm going to talk to you specifically about the superpowers of the Conman. What do I mean by Conman? Non-violent criminals, grifters, hustlers, scam artists. And what is their superpower? Well, their superpower is that using the right words, asking the right questions, and putting people in the right situation, they get those people to do exactly as they're told. Pretty cool superpower, you must agree. People have been known to hand over cash, cars, houses, credit card details, bank details. Their entire life savings, or their life savings of their corporations, have gone to scrupulous conmen using the superpowers we are about to talk of. Now, I've spent 20 years of my life as a professional deceiver. In fact, people may argue even more than that, because I started off as an actor, still deceiving. Then I became a magician, very much deceiving. And then I did a show on the BBC called The Real Hustle. We did over 100 episodes. It was sold all over the world. And I wrote and performed, along with my co-stars, over 500 scams and scammed people all over Europe and America. And that has taught me a few things. Number one, magic is exactly the same as sales. It's exactly the same as scams. And it's exactly the same as politics. They're all in one big bucket, folks. Why? Because it all boils down to the same thing. What are they selling? They're selling a story. It's a story and a narrative that they want you to buy into. Now, I'm not saying they're all crooked. I'm not saying they're all criminals. But they're all trying to do the same thing. They're trying to sell you on a story to get you to buy into their narrative. The second thing I found out is that the good politicians, the good magicians, the good salespeople, and the great conmen have all got one thing in common. They know us better than we know ourselves. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story. This happened early on in my magic career, and I learned something very, very interesting. I was hired to do a wedding. And I brought my deck of cards to do this wedding. Now, I have to tell you, it was very, very early on in my career, and I was very, very impressed by the amount of money that I was being paid. So I was a little bit nervous, and I wanted to do a good job. Now, traditionally in these things, you go around, you do card tricks, you do all sorts of other tricks involving things that a grown man shouldn't really be seen with, like sponge balls and giant cards and chains and all sorts of paraphernalia. But the tradition is that you leave the lead table till last, so the people who've paid you or the guests of honor till last. In this case, the groom who had hired me for entertainment for his wedding and the bride. That was the top table. Now, the trick that I had designed was my sort of pièce de résistance of the time, was an effect where I would go and get somebody to pick a card, the groom in this case. He would return it, and after a little bit of byplay, a little bit of showmanship, that card would be found in a sealed envelope inside my wallet. Pretty impressive trick, right? So I walk up, he takes a card, he puts it back in, and I screw up. I don't know what card he picked. I also don't know where that card is. I know it's in here, but that's not much help. So what do? I keep talking. I'm very good at talking whilst thinking about something else. So I'm talking and talking and thinking, what do I do, what do I do, what do I do? And of course I'm thinking, he's not going to pay me. He's just not going to pay me. Why would he pay me? I'm a rubbish magician. Why would he hand over money to a rubbish magician? I have ruined this man's wedding. So, this is what I did, and I'm going to show you exactly what I did. A gentleman in the front, you're going to be the groom, you stay where you are. So you've taken a card out, you've put it back in, we've shuffled it, I've lost it because I'm useless. And I said, okay, tell me what card you picked. Now name any card. Ace of heart or 8? Ace of hearts. Now, what you'll find is very, very interesting is that if I give you this deck and you were to go through it and look at it, right, and even if you gave it a shuffle, right, it doesn't really matter because actually before I came to your table, before I walked on the stage here, I put one card away and I put it here in my back pocket. And it was the Ace of Hearts. Okay? Ooh. I know. Stop the clapping. I do it for cash. It's much better. Now, let's think about what happened. This is the world's worst card trick, and I'll tell you why. He picked a card, put it back in, we shuffled. Then I asked him what the card was, looked through the deck, used a little bit of sleight of hand to sneak it out of the deck, put it in my pocket, and take it back out again. That's what you've just witnessed. I thought to myself, there's no way this guy is going to give me money for this. That is the kind of card trick that a 4-year-old would do, not a professional, highly paid magician. So I finished the rest of my act to a smattering of polite applause, and I do what all magicians do if you watch them. We sneak off to the bathroom, into the cubicles, to reset everything, to put everything back in the right pockets, you know, everything where things go, all of that kind of stuff. And as I was in the cubicle, to my horror, the groom and his best man enter the bathrooms. And to even more my horror, what are they talking about? The best man said, "Did you see the magician?" And I'm sitting there thinking, no. Do I really need to listen to this right now? But this is what happened. The groom said, he was amazing. He came over to the table, I thought of a card, and he was in his pocket. And that taught me 2 things. Number 1, for anybody who performs or who's on stage, speaking, doing magic, whatever, never tell an audience what you are about to do. Had I walked up to that table and said, the card that you're thinking of will be in a sealed envelope in my wallet, I would have been toast. Because that was never going to happen. Right? Second, and most importantly, and this is where I want to talk to you a little bit more about, I realized he fooled himself. He lied to himself. That's not what he witnessed. What he witnessed was an incompetent magic trick. But what he believed was a miracle. So magic and sales and scams and political beliefs all happened in the mind of the spectator. And we do it all the time. We lie to ourselves all the times to fit our narrative. How many of you in here have lied to yourself for a purchase you made, something you didn't really need, but you've convinced yourself that you want to buy it? Loads of people. Loads of people. So coming back to that, if we are lying to ourselves, and having done all these scams, I started to realize what things do they have in common, these scams? And I started realizing there's 5 basic principles of persuasion. Number 1, misdirection. The trick I played on you in the beginning with the hands, right? I can't do that with my wrists. You still all owe me €1, by the way. You're not getting out of that. I'll be collecting by the door. I I can't do that with my hands, but I needed a moment of misdirection. And that moment was when I pointed right here. It gave me a chance to disengage my hands and re-engage them in a different way. Right? Misdirection is used all the time in scams. Pickpockets use misdirection all the time because pickpockets need to invade your space. Right? And they need to have an excuse to invade that space. Incidentally, where would you find a pickpocket? Right next to the attention pickpocket sign. Why? Why? Because when you see that sign, you do this, right? To see if your stuff's still there. But what you've done is you've identified where your valuables are to a watching pickpocket. It works. Next up, we've got time pressure. Putting people under pressure makes them make mistakes. Okay, it's a genuine sales technique. How many of you have bought things on Black Friday or whatever they call it now, and Cyber Monday, and I don't know, Tremendous Tuesday is going to be the next one? Bought stuff that you don't need. Why? Because the sale's going to end. It's much easier to manipulate people when they're acting under pressure than if you give them time to examine the facts. Also, we have opportunity. Now, in the scamming world, we call this the good deal syndrome, right? Everybody likes something for nothing. Here's a terrible example of one of those old 419 scams, the emails where they ask you to move money into your account, and the killer phrase is this, is they're going to give you 20% of that money if you do what they ask you to. Now, you see this email, and this is a particularly bad one. I mean, if you look at the email address, mao.gov.my, where the hell is that from? That probably will go straight into your filter, your spam now. But the same exact deal from this guy sounds a bit more attractive. That's Bernie Madoff. He wears an expensive suit and has an expensive cigar. He offers the same deal. But if it's from him, oh, you might think about it, right? We love a good deal. We love getting something for nothing. The last two are probably the most important. Social compliance. The idea that we respond to badges, uniforms, right? This picture here, that says authority to you, right? Security, high-vis jacket. What you're actually looking at is a man with a costume on. Right? But you ascribe responsibility. You ascribe some sense of authority. And to be honest with you, we have to do that. And if we don't do that, our society will grind to a halt. Imagine every time you dealt with an official, you had to find out their whole life story to find out if they really are an official. Right? Life would grind to a halt. And the last one is the most powerful one, which is social proof. And you're all doing it right now. We all do it. The idea that we constantly look to others around us for clues as to how to behave. Now, that's a very, very powerful thing. Because as a hustler, if I know that, all I have to do is manipulate your environment to get you to behave the way I want you to. A good example is people queuing in the airport, right? People who queue at gates when the plane hasn't even arrived. How does that happen? Well, watch it next time when you go on holiday in a couple of weeks. How it happens is one person starts, and then another person goes, oh, well, maybe we should queue as well. And then people are like, well, there's 5 people queuing. Maybe we should join the queue. And before you know it, everyone's waiting for a plane that's going to take another 2 hours to arrive. Insane. Now, none of which I have told you is new, okay? It's been out there. What we need to come to terms with is this. For too long, we have been ignorant of these things, of how we function. And for too long, politicians, ad men, hustlers, magicians have been scrupulously studying these conditions and taking advantage of them. So it's time we woke up to these techniques. Now, you can use what I've shown you here for good and for bad. You can use it for good to promote your own narrative, your own stories, and use these techniques by all means. But you can also use them as a shield. Why? Because you can use these 5 principles to recognize scams. Next time somebody approaches you with a big opportunity that sounds a little bit dodgy and that pushes you to act quickly, well, you know it's a scam because 2 of those manipulating factors are in there. But the thing we need to do is we need to arm ourselves with knowledge. We need to start understanding what we use, how we use it, and what the vulnerabilities are. Everybody in this room has got a smartphone, but none of us really know how they work. And more importantly, none of us know the vulnerabilities. Now, let's take a very simple example, simpler than a smartphone, okay? These locks, do you recognize these? These mechanical push-button locks, okay? Who's used one of these? Put your hand up. Pretty much everyone, right? Now, they're very, very good locks. They don't require any power. You can change the code hourly, or whatever, every minute if you like. You give the code out. It's for a transient workforce. You can change it whenever you like. People don't need a key. People don't need anything. The code usually works like this. You push C, and then you put a 4-digit code, and the door will open. But they have a vulnerability. These locks can be broken in 2 minutes using a UV pen, right? You go up to the lock. You put your UV ink all over the buttons. UV ink is invisible, so no one can see it. You wait for a couple of minutes until the lock is used once or twice. You go back with your UV light, and you find out which buttons have not got pen anymore because they've been used. Now, the more astute of you in this audience will say, yes, but you know the 4 digits that have been used, but you don't know the order. And this is where the vulnerability is. The order doesn't matter. If the code is 1234 and you enter 4321, the door will open. Any combination of that 4-digit code will open this door. Now, I am not saying that these are terrible locks. They're very, very good locks. But now that I know their vulnerability, I use mine for my garden shed rather than an important room. So that's what we can do, arm ourselves with knowledge and facts when it comes to technical stuff, for example. But also when it comes to social media and news and politics, there is more that we should be doing. And I agree with earlier speakers here that we need to become a little bit more responsible and realize when we are being manipulated. A good friend told me, because I now do a radio show and I talk a lot about politics, a lot about Brexit, God help me. And he said to me, be careful. When you read headlines and news, be careful when you feel emotionally moved by the headline. And be even more careful when you agree with the headline, when the headline makes you happy. Because that's when you need to watch out. So I'll give you a couple of quick examples. This we saw during the Brexit referendum from Vote Leave. Turkey's joining the EU, and 76 million people are all going to come to the UK or join the EU. A blatant lie, but a blatant piece of misdirection. That had nothing to do with the vote. But you're misdirecting people to vote for something that will harm them, right? And a perfect good use of misdirection. And of course, social compliance and social proof come into it. Social compliance is because it's from a reputable site. Vote Leave was the official campaign, and it's on Facebook. A lot of people mistakenly trust what they read on Facebook, right? And it's getting thousands of likes, so social compliance, millions of people share it. Well, if they've shared it, it must be true. All of the things we talked about, all of those superpowers come together in that one poster. Last one, this. Remember this one? Just before the Trump election. Now, if you happen to be a Catholic and a Trump fan, this is great news, right? But again, it's a piece of fake news. So we need to use our superpower, and that superpower is knowledge. And we need to start learning how to use it and use the tech we have available to know how to share it. Thank you very much for your time.